Good afternoon, Razorback Nation. We are back with your Sunday afternoon Razor recap as we dive into Arkansas basketball's win in North Little Rock yesterday. Coach Silverfield's staff is slowly coming together, and we'll talk a little bit about the college football playoffs and the madness that occurred yesterday on Championship Saturday. But before we dive into all that, we got to thank our lovely friends over at Razor Pigs. Razor Pigs looking good, never felt so fun. They are the Arkansas-born brand, bringing some serious style to the golf course, tailgating everywhere in between. From high-quality polos to head-turning hats, they've got what you need to rep the natural state with pride. Found it right here at home and now run by a Razorback-loving family. Razor Pigs is where comfort meets cool, so go hog wild and shop Razor Pigs today at razorpigs.us. And our friends over at Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. You can check them out today. And if you are in Northwest Arkansas, check out the Core Brewery Tap Room, where you can get Scarlet Letter in all of its various flavors. Sunday afternoon, Arkansas basketball wins yesterday in North Little Rock. Arkansas gets a win today. How are we doing, Zane?
I cannot complain. Doing pretty good. So definitely good to see that win yesterday in basketball. I know last few years have kind of, our Little Rock game has kind of been dicey a couple times. So it was nice to see them kind of just, come in and take care of business. But yeah, with football staff coming together, it is kind of nice to see kind of an idea of, what we're going to look like, even though we may not know for sure the players, at least kind of staff and kind of their tendencies. So definitely good to kind of get a better picture for next season on that.
Right, 100%. I mean, his names come out there, we've seen a handful of those, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But as, and then players, like the most updated player we know that's coming back is Jaylen Brown is coming back, as he's recovering from that injury that he suffered earlier this year, breaking his leg in one of the games. So we'll see how he recovers there. But it'll be good to have some experience back in that wide receiver room. Before we dive into that, let's quickly look at the playoffs that was announced today after a wild championship Saturday yesterday, where you saw Indiana take down Ohio State and then Duke take down Virginia in the ACC championship game, which therefore allowed James Madison to get in the playoffs after they won the Sun Belt championship. So now we have James Madison and Tulane in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to take one quick second to kind of revisit Thursday on where I did say Indiana was going to keep it close, and I did pick Indiana. So I'll toot my horn on that one real fast. But no, there were definitely some good games. I was not expecting Alabama to finish with negative rushing yards. I mean, I was expecting a little bit better matchup there. But also, I think kind of goes to what I was saying Thursday with, hey, Georgia has that ability to kick it into another gear if need be. So it was kind of exciting to see that. Interested to see kind of how that'll all play out, though. But yeah, Indiana being Ohio State, I think was the big pick or the big kind of surprise there for a lot of people. And then also, obviously, you have two group of 5 teams now in there as opposed to one that we've had the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Right. And, it makes sense getting Tulane in, them winning the American Conference Championship. But, I think the big surprise to everybody was seeing James Madison get in over, of course, the big talk was a team like Notre Dame. They get left out of the playoffs. Miami does get in. And so, a lot of teams in the Big 12, I've seen today, Kansas State and Iowa State both have said that they're not going to accept any bowl invite.
Said that as well.
And then Notre Dame came out and said that as well after, in their terms, getting snubbed out of the college football playoffs. So,
and I could be wrong, but it might have changed. But I thought it was, hey, they take the top 5 conference champions as kind of like your set 5, and then the rest are at large. Which at that point, then you're talking, okay, was it Tulane, James Madison, and Duke as that 3 that they were considering in the rankings there? At which case, I think you could put James Madison above Duke if you look at the full resume. I mean, Duke was 7-5 playing the conference championship. Yeah, they beat Virginia, but James Madison was also 11-1. Okay, I can kind of see if that was kind of the logic on it. but I'm not sure, and you might have to remind me on that if it's still, the top 5 conference champions getting in.
I believe so. Like the Power 4 conference champions get the automatic bid. So your SEC, well, not the ACC because Duke's not in it. So.
I thought it was, your top 5 conference champs because that is your Power 4 normally, and then your best group of 5. And this year just so happened to be 2 group of 5 over the ACC champ. So I feel like that's what it was. I could be wrong on that, though. But that's just kind of my opinion on why both of them got in. Because I think if you're – okay, yeah, 4-star just said top 5 conference champions is correct. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So, again, ACC kind of got left out of that because their conference champ was not as good as the other 2 group of 5 champs. So it's not really a sense of, James Madison getting in over Notre Dame. It was more so getting in over Duke.
Right.
So
because, how teams get in the 5 auto bids, the champions of the 5 highest ranked conferences, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and it says Pac-12 in the future. As we know, the Pac-12 is going to become a thing again. And then the 7 at-large bids will be the next 7 highest ranked teams by the committee, which can include non-champions or champions from smaller conferences, i.e. James Madison.
Yeah. So I think the main thing is the first thing you had said there were the top 5 conference champions. I think it listed the Power 4 because it's typically those 4. Whoops. But yeah, so I think it's normally those Power 4 kind of the top 4 highest ranked. And just this year didn't play out like that. So
right. And so now looking at just quickly breaking down first round that will start the 19th. Texas Tech gets a bye, Indiana gets a bye, Georgia gets a bye, and Ohio State all have byes. So those first 4 games that you're going to have is James Madison playing Oregon. Oregon starts out as a 20.5-point favorite. Probably one of the closest games that you'll have is Alabama and Oklahoma, a rematch there. Alabama, the 1.5-point favorite
at Oklahoma.
Spread opens.
Interesting to see. I'll say we'll be interesting to see with it being that first round home field advantage. So it'll be at Oklahoma, being the 8th seed over the 9. So that'll be interesting to see for sure.
And then you have Tulane playing Ole Miss, another rematch from earlier in the season this year. And then number 10 Miami will head to Texas A&M as Texas A&M opens up as the 4-point favorite in this game.
Okay.
So Brady asks, is it just the first round top seeds host? Yes. So
the first round is, your 5-12, 6-11, 7-10, 8-9. Your higher seed will be the host there. Second round is when it goes to the Sugar Bowl.
At the neutral site. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be the neutral site, actual kind of bowl game locations per se. So, yeah, just that first round is home field advantage.
Yeah, so the winner of James Madison and Oregon will play Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. The winner of Alabama-Oklahoma plays Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Winner of Tulane-Ole Miss plays Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And then the winner of Miami and Texas A&M will play Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, so I do want one quick question with you, though. Do you think the top 4 seeds having that first round bye actually hurts them? We saw that last year with the teams that played that first round at home. Second round, I believe more of them won than lost when they were playing the top 4 seeds that second round of the playoffs. So I'm interested if that happens again this year, or if you think those top 4 will kind of lock it down and show out this time around.
Potentially. I think the thing that I'm interested to see compared to the seeds that we had last year was, you look at Texas Tech, they're going to be sitting until January 1st.
Yeah.
So they're not going to play for nearly a full month of football, whereas these other teams are going to play here in just under 2 weeks. So they're going to continue, I guess, their regular cadence of prepping, practice, things like that. Whereas Texas Tech, Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State might have altered schedules as, they don't have to prepare for games in, 2 weeks. And, they're all sitting there until New Year's Day, other than, Ohio State, that they're going to be playing New Year's Eve. So Potentially, I get the idea of these teams having buys, but if you're going to do buys like this, between the first and second round, 11 days seems like a lot of time to put a gap in between there. So,
especially when you're talking, hey, the teams that didn't play have 3.5, 4 weeks. So then something that 11 days seems like nothing. But I just know kind of last year, the way it all played out, that was kind of one thing I saw and a few people have kind of acknowledged online. So I was just kind of wondering your thoughts if you think we'll see something similar again this year or not.
Maybe. And that's what I want to see is if 2 years in a row, these teams that have the bye that they sit for that extended period of time, do they come out slow in the games? Do they struggle and things like that?
And at that point, I'm like, do you heavily consider going to that 16 to kind of it maybe not eliminate the advantage, but kind of, hey, the top seeds want to be able to knock the rest off quicker against a not as good team. Not saying not as good. Obviously, if you're in the playoff, you're a good team. But that's just something to maybe kind of revisit in the future, maybe. So
right, exactly, and that's what there is to look at there with that. So I'll be interested to see how that affects them, though. But so now, we'll start slowly finding out what teams are going to be in bowl games, and these invites, and then bowl season is going to be here before you know it.
Yep. Yes, sir. So
Brady says, have a week between rounds and 2 before the championship like the NFL.
Dang, sorry. I'm not opposed to that at all. So
yeah, that's not a bad idea. Scoot the first sets of games closer together, and then put a little buffer gap in there before the championship game.
For sure.
So yeah, interested to see how those shook out today. That's one of those things where I think you could go back and forth. I've had discussions with multiple people about, this is maybe one of those cons of Notre Dame not being in a conference. I mean, you don't get to qualify as a conference championship, and then there's those odds where you get left out. Yeah, you may be a higher ranked team, but I mean, the way just based off how they have the playoffs set up, this thing can happen where you get left out.
For sure. And, it is tough because I think the committee did the right thing in the sense of putting Miami in over them. My only concern is, or not concern, my critique is, okay, you had Notre Dame ahead of Miami your last couple releases, and then suddenly now what a lot of people think was doing the right thing is looking at the head-to-head matchup, putting Miami ahead of Notre Dame on the last one. I think, setting that precedent is good. I just feel like there should have been some consistency in the last 2 or 3 times it came out where you had Notre Dame ahead of Miami. Now suddenly they're flipped, and now Miami got in.
Right. So. I agree there. So now we got the matchups are set. Now it's bowl season gets here, and then here in a couple weeks we'll have we'll have the first set of games, and we'll get the college football playoffs rocking. So now we'll dive into Arkansas basketball's game as they headed down to Central Arkansas to take on Fresno State in Simmons Bank. And, another one of those games where Arkansas seemed to start off a little slow and sluggish. It seems like that's been the trend with all these non-conference games against lower tier opponents.
But the good thing is the defense did not start off slow. So that was definitely good to see. I mean, we had 34 at half, and they had 24, and that was with the buzzer beater 3 to go into the half. So defense still showed up, which is definitely good to see. Hey, your offense isn't clicking, but your defense is still going strong.
Right.
So that was definitely good to see.
Exactly. So that's the thing. As long as you can be consistent with your defense, that offense at some point is going to come because, while you're watching the game, you heard the commentators talking about, hey, at some point, DJ is going to start hitting these threes he's shooting because, the amount he had that basically went in and then rattled back out at the last second. That's what the mentality you got to have. What DJ showed is, hey, I know I can shoot the ball. I'm going to keep shooting. and at some point
You
they're
have to
going to
stay
stop.
confident because every shooter will go through those stretches where, hey, you can't buy a bucket, and there's two different approaches. It's, hey, it's not my night, so I'm going to help out where I can, or it's, hey, I need to get back in the groove. Obviously, depending on the game, depending on how the rest of the team's performing, either one of those approaches is good. I was glad to see him, keep shooting, get a couple shots down, because I think that momentum he got and that confidence he got is going to help carry over into next Saturday's game against Texas Tech. And we're going to need some guys to be able to score, because that'll be a good game.
Yeah, I agree. And so when you look at this game, this is another great performance from Darius Acuff. He comes in as your leading scorer, scoring 18 points, going 7 of 12 from the field, 3 of 6 from deep, 1 of 2 from the line. He adds in 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 1 steal in 33 minutes of play. Another game where he kind of built off that performance he had against Louisville.
Yeah.
And, continues just to impress everybody and show why he's
he's
going to be a top-round talent.
That sheet. So good to see him kind of, getting those assist numbers, rebounds, just kind of contributing everywhere. It was great to see that. So
exactly.
And I think maybe, taking some smarter shots, his shooting percentage, shooting 7 and 12 is pretty good. So I'll gladly take that from a guard.
Right, 100%. I'll take that all day. And it seems like as the season goes, and like especially that game against Louisville and now this game, he's getting more confident as we go. But also I'm noticing he's still putting up the points. But you talk about last game and this game, he's starting to figure out the flow and being able to share the ball more. Between these past 2 games, he has 18 assists. So, he's getting in rhythm more. He's feeling more comfortable with his teammates, and that's something that comes with time, especially with him being a freshman.
Shots, putting the team on your shoulders when you don't have to. And that's, man, like we were saying earlier, like it's one of those, if shots aren't falling, but also it's just, hey, being more selective and making better shots. And, it's fantastic. There were a couple times earlier in the season, I love the way he plays, but there were a few times where I was like, okay, we didn't need to shoot that one. Or, okay, like slow it down, calm down, kind of, catch your breath and approach it a little bit smarter. And didn't see as many of those shots, didn't see as many of those plays. Also with the turnovers down, that's another one where, he wasn't full speed ahead, out of control, losing the ball. Great to see that. He's playing a little bit slower, just kind of, he's playing like a more mature point guard at the moment. And I love to see that, especially from a freshman with his ability and potential.
Right, I agree. And then you had DJ, add in 12 points, going 4 of 10 from the field, 2 of 8 from deep. Like we said, he had those shots going early that didn't fall, then hit some key shots in the second half, 2 of 2 from the line. He added in 1 block as well in 30 minutes. And then Malik Thomas, your other leading scorer, with 12 points. He shot 4 of 12 from the field, 3 of 7 from deep, 1 of 2 from the line, added in 1 rebound and 3 steals in 21 minutes. So, your top 3 guys, like we talked about it, majority of the time, you see Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas, and then this was a game where, all right, it was DJ's turn to kind of step up a little bit.
And that's, your more experienced guys. Your Ewan, Pringle, Brazil, Wagner, your juniors and seniors. Good to see one of them step up along with the 2 freshmen we have going on. And it was good to see Knox in double figures on a pretty efficient night as well. Hopefully he's kind of getting back in the groove, playing soon to be kind of how he was finishing last season, because that will definitely help as well.
Right. That's what I was going to say, too, is like hopefully this is kind of between last game and this game, this is a Kickstarter to getting Knox back going because, for this team to be successful, you're going to need that. And so, yesterday coming out, putting up 11 points, 4 of 9 shooting. He hits 3 of 5 from deep, no free throw attempts. He adds in 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 1 steal in 25 minutes. So, packing the stat sheet with different categories there as he's contributing in all kinds of ways. But I think, yesterday was really the first time you saw that improved shot he had from deep. Yeah. Whereas, it was a shot that he was finding late in the season last year. And I think that was one of the things he got feedback, from going through the combine stuff. Hey, work on your outside shot. And this is the first game he has actually, come out and really showcased, hey, I can shoot the deep ball now.
Yeah, for sure. And, on another little side note of the game, I love the on-ball defense we're having to where it seems like there's been a handful of games where we've been able to limit the top scorer for the other team. And obviously, Louisville, whoever the Louisville scorer was, I forgot his name. Mikael Brown did good, but their other guy struggled. And then Fresno State, you had Highbreder. I don't know how to say his name, but he came in averaging 18 points a game. He had 8 points. 6 of those were from free throws. He was 1-10, 0-5 from 3. And that was just one of those, I think with that guard play that we've talked about being some of the best in the country, I think we're really messing with some of these star guards for other teams and really making it difficult for them.
Right.
And that's as someone who loves, the Mike Anderson, Nolan Richardson style of 40 minutes of hell, you want that defense all up in their grill. You want that on-ball, tough defense. And it's just, I love to see that.
Oh, 100%. And, that's why, like that guy you mentioned, he averaged 20 points a game. And like you said, we held him to 8 with 6 of those coming from the line. So,
yeah. So, and then a mental error by Billy. It's one of those, I get a little frustrated, but you got to kind of keep your cool a little bit more. But I love Billy. I love the way he plays. Obviously, just a little mental error. I'm sure it'll get fixed. I don't expect that to happen again. Obviously, hate to see it, but, things happen sometimes. So,
right. And with that, I want to ask the question. I was thinking about that, especially looking at it. You had Brazil get whistled for the Tech as well. That's 2 in this game. Through the first few games of the season, we've seen at least a majority of the games, something happened, where one of these guys, whether it be Pringle, Brazil, now Billy, letting their temper get a hold of them a little bit. Do you think at some point this becomes a problem down the road? Because it seems pretty consistent, at least 1 point in every game. Things get heated and one of our guys gets whistled for something.
Yeah, as not great. I didn't go off and play college. I just played high school ball, but it's very easy to get heated in the moment and go from there. But yeah, that's definitely part of being at that next level of keeping your emotions in check and being, smart with how you play. In my opinion, it's one of those where I don't think it will bite us too hard in the butt in the future. I think it's one of those, it's a good excuse or good reason for Cal to really get onto them. Because you're not seeing a repeat from any of these guys. Guys are having their little issue per se, but you're not seeing someone with multiple in a season so far to this point. You're seeing some guys kind of get mouthy, but you're not really seeing that flagrant foul called multiple times on someone so far this season. So I feel like it's almost not saying it's excusable or allowed, but I'd almost rather it happen if it's going to happen in a game like this where we have the game under control, as opposed to a few years ago against Vanderbilt where someone got maybe not ejected. I forgot who it was, but there was a big flagrant foul and they ended up shooting a lot of free throws, and down the stretch, it really hurt us. So it's one of those where kind of take it as learning and kind of take it in stride and just kind of learn from your mistakes. That's obviously what the non-conference is for in basketball, to, perfect your team, but also, hey, you really lost your cool here. Let's not let that happen again. But yeah, also I feel like it kind of goes to what Brazil said after the Louisville game. They got a bunch of dogs. They got some guys who they're not going to take crap. They're going to come out here, play their all, and if you can't keep up with them, then okay, they're going to make sure you know it. I think it's also just kind of the intensity. It's kind of a side effect of the intensity at times. Mm-hmm. But hey, if I had to go, a flagrant foul every couple games and intense defense like we've seen, or never get a flagrant foul and super relaxed defense, and you're playing, 90 to 85 point games nonstop, I would almost rather say I'd take the flagrant foul, just because it's good to see that intensity and the players care as much as they do. So it might not be a common opinion, but that's kind of my stance on it is, hey, yeah, it's not a good thing, but hey, the players care, and they're showing that. So that's definitely something I like.
Right. And I think that's one thing that you're going to see with this type of defense, this on-ball intense defense is, things are going to get heated, especially, when you're bigs, you're encouraging them to go fight for the boards and everything like that. You're going to see that. And so, yeah, to your point, as long as it doesn't become like super consistent where it's the same guy every game or, we're getting
Because
one
at that point,
consistently.
that's when you start getting a potential suspension. If you're having a player pick up multiple flagrants, multiple technical fouls, at some point, I think it's maybe 7 technicals or 3 flagrants. At some point, there's kind of a normalcy of, hey, there's a 1-game suspension or so. So as long as it's not getting up to that level, again, I'm not excusing or saying, hey, yeah, go get a flagrant foul. Obviously, we don't want that. But seeing that intensity kind of play out that balance, I think it's kind of one of those necessary risks in a sense almost. But it is definitely one of those where, there's been a few teams in the past where, yeah, we didn't really have anything, but also it's kind of like we didn't really care almost, it seemed. But then again, also on the flip side, like you were saying, part of that defense, yeah, you're going to be up in their grill. You're going to make the other team very frustrated as well, which is why we've been lucky enough to have a couple offsetting technical fouls this season because we're getting under the other team's skin. We're really pressing on, messing with them. Our main thing is we just need to not react to it. And that's where things get escalated. And that's one of those where, hey, that's a coaching moment where, hey, slow it down, calm down.
Right. So you look at it this season so far, just to kind of recap that. So against Winthrop, of course, you had Nick Pringle get a technical. DJ and Isaiah got ejected out of that game. Then Jackson State, Carter Knox got called for the technical.
We're trying to contain Isaiah, I will say. But, yeah, you're right. The 2 techs on that one.
And then Carter Knox against Jackson State. Then Billy against Louisville. And then Brazil and Billy in this game as well. So yeah. Billy's got
2, but 1 T and 1 flagrant, right? Or were they both flagrants?
1 T, 1 flagrant 2.
Okay. So obviously, you got to keep your emotions in check. But I've said a few times, hey, Billy's style is he's going almost out of his way to get under the other player's skin. Very much reminds me of kind of that Kamani Johnson, just kind of, hey, I'm going to make your life miserable when I'm out here. I'm going to guard you tough. I'm going to be 100%, 110% effort, hustle. It's going to get annoying to the other team. So he's going to probably be the focal point of a lot of teams, especially knowing that, hey, he's already had a flagrant 2 in attack. They might know, hey, we can get under his skin. Definitely got to make sure you keep it all under control, though. So that's one I'll be interested to see moving forward.
And it's like you got to remember the thing they always say is, and when these things get heated, they always get the second guy.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes to, hey, don't react. What I was saying earlier, it's got sometimes Taken's trying to just know, hey, if you're getting the other player mad at you, you're doing your job right because they're suddenly not in the right headspace. You just cannot react because then suddenly that player wins. So,
100%. A couple other guys to highlight. Malik Ewan, 9 points in this game, comes out 4 of 6 from the field, 1 of 2 from the line. He adds in 5 rebounds, 2 blocks in 16 minutes. So being efficient with his minutes, kind of hopefully this
last couple games he's been pretty good at that. So I definitely like to see kind of more glimpses of last season's Malik Ewan starting to show.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. Hopefully that's kind of triggered where he's going to start playing more consistent like this. You look at Nick Pringle, only 2 points, but the big thing I want to point out here is he came in and got you 7 boards. That's what I'm looking for. Like, you may not have 8-10 points a game, or score as much as you did say at South Carolina like you did last year. But if you can come in here, get some boards, help this team win, that's all you need to do.
For sure. And also, one thing to point out, he was 1 of 2. It's not like he was 1 of 5 and just couldn't score. He was
right.
He's very, now granted, a lot of his shots are right around the rim, but he's very smart with what shots he takes. So, yeah, didn't have an assist. Or no, he had 1 assist. Sorry. He had 1 assist. But he's also just very efficient because he doesn't force bad shots.
Right.
Which I know in the pan times, there's times where it's, hey, can I pump fake, try to get him in the air and try to draw a foul? Refs will not always call that if they know you're kind of trying to sell it. So I definitely like that he's not doing that as much as well. So
right. And then Billy, before he got ejected out of the game, 8 points, 2 of 3 from the field, 0 of 1 from deep, 4 of 6 from the line, added in.
All right, I think you're talking about Sealy, Isaiah
Sorry,
Sealy.
yeah. Billy, 6 points, 3 of 5 from the field, 0 of 1 from deep, no free throws, added in 1 rebound, 4 assists, in 12 minutes of play, of course, got ejected in this game. And then Sealy, I was glad to see he gets some extended minutes in this game.
Yeah,
He's a guy that is a talented player, maybe not to the exact level as an Acuff or a Thomas, but still very talented local product. 8 points, 2 of 3 from the field, 0 of 1 from deep, 4 of 6 from the line. Added in 3 rebounds, 2 steals in 10 minutes of play. So efficient with those minutes once again. And a guy
that's on the season so far. Granted, he's only played in 6 games, but he's averaging 10 minutes a game and 6.3 points per game. So he definitely scores when he's in there. And a lot of that is he's not afraid to drive and draw. He's not afraid of contact. He's not afraid to get to the free throw line. And that's one where, it would almost be nice to see him maybe earlier in the game if we're starting to kind of get some calls, or even if we're not being super aggressive in the paint, hey, try to get some fouls on the other team. And I feel like he would be one of our better guys at least drawing those fouls, because there has been plenty of times where he is able to draw those fouls and draw contact. So, but yeah, going back to Billy, I also love seeing the 4 assists. I mean, there's been a handful of times where, like I said, I love Billy's game, but there's been times where he almost like Acuff in a sense where, hey, he's trying to get to the rim and maybe not lose control, but almost be kind of that not 100% in control of his body, where it's kind of hurt us in the past. Definitely good to see him, make that extra pass, get those assist numbers, and also just kind of being smart with the ball. Maybe not being smart the rest of the time, though.
Right. So it'll be fun to watch this team as we continue to develop the season. Like you mentioned, big game against Texas Tech next Saturday. Another test, like we said, it was good to see us get that win over Louisville. You get a lesser opponent in this game, and then a week off. So you get a week off, no midweek game this week. And then you'll go back to Texas Tech, or you'll go to play Texas Tech in Dallas at the American Airlines. Come back home, play Queens on Tuesday, December 16th, and then have a big-time matchup against Kelvin Sampson and his Houston team in New Jersey. So,
yeah, and that'll be a good matchup. I'm excited for that game a lot.
Yeah, I think it'll be those last two games. So Arkansas sitting at 1-2 in these, big-time matchups. So if you can finish, if we could get wins here, finish 3-2, I'll take it. If you're 2-3, it's not the worst. It's like Cal even said.
I'm not fully against even going 2-3 and splitting these last 2. Right. Obviously, I don't want that to happen, but I could see that happening. It would not be the end of the world. Would not be too upset about that. So now if we go 1-4, okay, a little upset about that one. So
yeah. So some big time games coming up. It'll be fun to watch those and see these guys continue on. And before you know it, January is going to be here, and we're going to be tipping off conference play against Tennessee.
Yeah.
We'll move on and talk a little bit of football as Coach Silverfield is building his staff together. We've seen a few guys, not a ton superficial from the university side of things, but, a lot of reporters, guys are coming. It's just, I'm sure they're getting all things lined out before, our social media team decides to put out anything official, graphics, whatever it may be on who's coming. But we kind of know for the most part, headed over to join Coach Silverfield's staff on the offensive side of the ball, his offensive coordinator from Memphis, Tim Cramsey. So a guy that, has spent a lot of time with Silverfield, runs a very efficient offense. If you look at Memphis's scoring and their offensive statistics over the past few seasons, especially not this last season, but the year before that with the guy like they had Heineken, their numbers were crazy through the air, able to be efficient there. And so we'll see if he has what it takes to, transition that from the American Conference into the SEC with these SEC level talent.
And I will say, like, seeing kind of his style, I guess you could say, kind of what he wants to do with the offense, I think KJ is going to be a great fit with him. So definitely, I think that's a good little fit right there. So that'll be exciting to see kind of how they connect and grow together in the offseason.
Yeah, I agree. And, whether KJ comes out once we kind of get a better idea, we've seen, glimpses of him in games, but to see, all right, once he's a full-time starter, is he going to come out and be more of a pass-first guy, a run-first guy?
I think it'll be very much like you saw against Texas, where you saw him for an extended period of time, where, hey, I'm obviously looking at my options at wide receiver, but I think he's going to be more patient in the pocket than both Taylor Green and KJ Jefferson were. Both of them seem to go, hey, option one, sometimes option two, if it's not there, I'm going to tuck and run. I think KJ is going to be better at kind of, letting the play build, seeing who's open, and then from there, escaping and running. So right. I think you'll see maybe a little bit more efficient version of Taylor Green, KJ Jefferson, just because I feel like he's going to be a little bit more patient before he runs away. So that's just kind of my opinion. Obviously, I could be way wrong. We could be revisiting this end of next season. He have twice as many interceptions as touchdowns. I don't know. But in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, that's kind of, if I had to guess, what we're going to get from him.
Yeah, I agree. From, like you said, from what we've seen, he's being patient in the pocket, trying to go through his progressions, his reads. Yeah. And then if he needs to run, he's athletic and has the ability to do that. So, that'll be fun to see that development along with, once we also find out who all is coming back, because that's going to be some key pieces too on, how much time he's going to have as, you've got to replace that left side of the offensive line, for sure, between Carmona and Corey Robinson leaving.
And I will say, I think watching some Memphis games last few years, I think our offensive line will be fine. I think we should be in good hands with the O-line. So I'm not stressing too much about that. I think Silverfield will get who he wants and who he needs. I think we'll have a pretty solid O-line. Because, even this season against Memphis, their O-line, granted, our D-line didn't have much depth, but their O-line held pretty strong against us. Their O-line competed with an SEC D-line. Yeah, so I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be one of those, we may not know who it's going to be yet, but I think we're in good hands with that. So definitely something I'm not worrying about or stressing about.
Right, I agree. And so then you turn over to the defensive side of the ball in terms of your D coordinator. It's being reported it's going to be Ron Roberts, who is currently at Florida. Not sure. Like I said, they haven't initially, from the university side of things, put out anything. So I believe he's is he still the DC? Yeah, he's still the DC at Florida. And so we're just kind of waiting there. I'm sure there's contract negotiations going through. That kind of came out end of the week last week. So I'm sure they're still trying to figure out things. But,
and, I've heard a lot of positive and negative about him. I kind of did a deep dive. Not too upset about the hire at all. Big thing that sticks out to me is each of the last 3 seasons, even with Florida not being great this season, the worst he's finished the last 3 seasons was 2023 with Auburn, where they finished 29th in Division I out of 133 teams in red zone defensive percentage. So, yeah, they may let you get to the red zone, but they're able to at least lock it down once it gets down there. Last 3 seasons, they were 29th. Last year, they were 10th. And this season, they were 13th in the nation in red zone defensive percentage. So that's definitely something I feel like we might have struggled with some this year. For reference, this year we were 111th out of 136. And even last year, where, last year a lot of the opinions was that the defense kept us in a lot of games. Last year, our defense was 44th in that category. So, I mean, his worst team last 3 years was still 15 ranks higher than our best last year when we were still pretty good. So, it's something I'm definitely excited to see. I'm excited to see kind of the coaches he brings along with him for positions. I'm interested to see kind of his defensive style with the guys that we end up bringing in. So, pretty excited about him as a hire. At first, I was kind of like, I don't know who this is. Once I started digging, I'm not too upset about it.
Right, and that's the thing is, to your point, the reason Florida didn't have a great season wasn't necessarily because of the defense. So
it's not their defense. Their defense was pretty solid. I mean, yeah, they averaged, now granted, 26 points a game allowed, but the offense did not help them too much. So they were still in the upper half of that.
Yeah. And so it's going to be fun to see, like you said, who he builds around him. But, his defensive scheme is based off getting turnovers and having defenses that score points for you. So, capitalizing off turnovers, whether it be interceptions, taking those back for scores, fumble recoveries. His defensive philosophy is essentially going after the ball and putting emphasis on that. Yeah. And so, like you said, building the staff around him, see who he's going to bring in. Somebody mentioned here, we talked about it last week with Memphis Spence, as Angel said, I would bring in Charlie Strong for defensive line coach. Sign me up.
Yeah. Now, one quick thing I will say, also to mention, on Ron Roberts, why you can't really look at the numbers as much as you would like to. And I'm one of those guys that I want to find the numbers and have those answers. So obviously your preseason strength of schedule is going to differ a lot from end of season where your total strength of schedule finished at. So like, for example, this season, our strength of schedule finished 18th. Florida's was 5th. And so, our schedule was horrible. Their schedule was worse than ours, and their defense still did pretty decent. And then last year, our strength of schedule was 23rd, and theirs was 6th. So each of the last 2 years, they have had the 5th and 6th toughest schedule. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. He's definitely had it pretty rough with the teams they've had to play against.
Right.
So I think it was 11 of their 12 games this year. They held them like 50 yards plus under their season average. So that's not a bad stat.
Right, exactly. So it's like Angel said here, he said he's a lot better DC than what people realize. I think they just see some surface level stuff and see, oh, he's an older guy, this and that. But like you said, you dive into the stats and look at what he's been dealt with and what he's been able to do. It's a really good hire. And he kind of follows that up is his defensive philosophy it's innovative and used by a lot of major college football teams. A lot of his defensive schemes and things have been adopted by a lot of coaches and teams across the country. So,
I think it's definitely a lot better hire than people think. I think, we might see some of that next year. Like, hey, may not have expected it to be this good. I think our defense will be in decent hands. So.
Yeah. And then we've already talked about, we know they're bringing over their strength and conditioning coach and, Noah Franklin. It's not something that I'll welcome the change as, that seems to have been an issue that we've had the past couple seasons is, strength and conditioning guys getting hurt, guys not seeming to be strong enough. The prime example is when we played Memphis earlier. Ian Gaffard, 395, yet you have a quarterback
that's tough. And that's, obviously I'm not blaming Jafar on it. It's one of those, if you're not being given the tools to succeed, it's kind of tough. So that's one of those. I'm not saying that, I think it was Souders. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying I don't think it was working. And so definitely I'll take any change with all this. So.
Right. I agree. So, and then, he's bringing over his wide receivers coach from Memphis, who's a great recruiter, played quarterback at Vanderbilt. So a guy that's young, has brought in some talent. And then, we're looking at still, again, nothing's official, but, if all the reports are right, we're going to be bringing in David Johnson from Florida State as the running backs coach. A guy that has been around, has SEC experience, something that, Silverfield mentioned. He had coached at Tennessee. You look at his, coaching history. He's been at Florida State since 2020 as the running backs coach, recruiting coordinator. So he's going to be able to go down in Florida and, have some of those ties and recruiting down there. Previous to that, 2019, he was the running backs coach at Tennessee. 2018, he coached wide receivers at Tennessee. And here's a tie-in where some of this might start to come into play. Is 2016 and 17, he was at Memphis as a wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator. Prior to that, he was in Tulane as the running backs coach, coached some high school ball. So he's been around, got a lot of experience. I'll take that hire as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And so, other than that, the big one that came out today was we're hiring Chad Lunsford as our special teams coach coming over from Auburn. Another one of those low-key hires. Do what?
Better than Scott Fountain.
I was about to say, I think a lot of people are ready to see Scott Fountain hit the road. And so,
going back real fast to the wide receivers coach. So last 3 seasons, Memphis has had all-conference first-team wide receiver each of the last 2 seasons. And the year before that, they had a second-team all-conference wide receiver. So he's definitely, I feel, good at producing wide receivers. So that's a little tidbit that I liked hearing that and seeing that. So that was good to find out for sure.
Exactly. And then a little bit of detail on Chad Lunsford, who will be special teams coach. So he's 48.
Wasn't he a head coach at one point?
Yes. So prior to this past season at Auburn, he was at Auburn, but before that, from 2017 to 2021, he was the head coach at Georgia Southern.
Okay, got it.
And he was interim coach at Florida Atlantic in 2024. So has head coaching experience. Fantastic. While he's at Georgia Southern, he had a 28-21 record. And so he will replace Scott Fountain, who's been here the past 6 seasons. So, I'll take it. It's, some change that I think a lot of people's wanting. We're still waiting for a few more things to fill out. We still need, a little bit more detail on who's going to come in. And, we know the defensive coordinator, more than likely it's Ron Roberts. Like I said, that's probably who it's going to be. I just want to, before 100% saying that.
University, so kind of just waiting at that point. But yeah, as long as it goes through, I'm happy with it.
Exactly. And so now we're just waiting on, those assistants. So, who's going to come in and coach your D-line, your linebackers, your DB safeties. Angel says here, I like this idea. Bring in Grant Morgan to coach under Ron Roberts.
For sure. I would not be opposed to that at all. And you got Arkansas ties to keep in state. Greenwood produces some good football players. Hey, that might help. So,
right. And then on the offensive side of the ball, we know Crampsey, OC, who's going to come in and be your quarterbacks coach. Is he going to kind of duel that as the OC quarterbacks coach? We know we have our wide receivers coach. More than likely, we have our running back coach. Reports coming out that more than likely the only staff member being retained from this previous staff is Morgan Turner at tight ends coach. Still waiting for official confirmation of that. Meaning Eric Mateos is going to be leaving.
If it keeps some of the times we have right now, I'll gladly take that. I have not had any complaints about our tight ends last few seasons. So
I agree. You look at our tight ends so far. We're going to lose Andreas Puska and Rohan Jones to eligibility. So you could return Jaden Platt. That would be the big one.
I would say that's one where it's like, hey, if you can keep him as the coach, if that can bring Platt back, I'll take it. So
right. And so that's going to be the big one that I would hope to see retain. Because if you bring Jaden Platt back, he will only be a redshirt junior next year.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take that.
So, of course, you might go in and out and get a tight end or two from the portal. I know we're one of the 5 schools that the tight end from Oklahoma State listed as his 5 finalists in the transfer portal. Angel mentions Maddox Laster. I would throw him in here, but I've got him listed all over the board here. He plays. He can play tight end. He'll play running back, fullback, whatever you need him to. So I didn't necessarily
list him as an athlete.
Right. Yeah. When you're recruiting guys, athlete, Maddox Laster, there you go. But, it would be interesting to see if he gets put in, like, say you don't bring anybody from the portal, he gets shifted more to working with those tight ends. Maybe that's something we see more of this next season. But
yeah.
So, that staff's coming together, like we said, kind of just waiting on some official announcements from before
the university. So
yeah, don't want to confirm anything without it being official.
For sure. So here's the disclaimer: it is all speculative. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So, it's going to be fun to see who else is built throughout this rest of this signing class or this coaching staff. And then, before you know it, we're 3 weeks-ish away from transfer portal season being here, and that's going to be the fun one to watch. I can't wait to see what happens.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Angel says Unc would be good at that position. Hey, I'm game. Let's transition Monte Harrison over to tight end.
Yeah. So
I was about to say, because if a lot of guys return, you're going to have a pretty full wide receiver room, because right now
a lot of receivers able to come back.
Because the only 2 guys you're losing due to eligibility is Raylan Sharp and Omega Blake.
I hate that we're losing those 2, though.
Yeah, so your returners, this is disclaimer, nothing official yet, but if guys that are eligible to come back, your wide receiver room would be CJ Brown. We know Jaylen Brown's coming back. You got Courtney Crutchfield, Monte Harrison, Jacaden Ferguson, that was a high incoming freshman this year. Andy Jean, Cam Shanks can come back. A guy that we didn't talk about because he didn't play this year, Ismail Cisse, the transfer from Stanford. He was locked in to be a starter before he got hurt in the preseason. And then not to mention Antonio Jordan.
Yeah. I really like Antonio Jordan.
I was about to say he's another one that you can add to the list.
Another Warren wide receiver.
Warren wide receiver, exactly.
and he is very good. So,
and then you've got 3 incoming freshmen to add to that wide receiver room as well.
Yeah. So definitely some, a lot of things still up in the air that, we're just kind of have to wait on. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, though.
Exactly. So we're tracking here. We've got us a fun little tracker built that we're keeping up with all these guys. So as we hear guys on what they're going to do, we'll keep it updated, and we'll let you guys know. So Angel says CJ Brown is a player.
Changes, so
yeah, so it's going to be fun to see. But with that, we're awaiting bowl game announcements and to see what that's going to happen for the college football playoffs. Basketball season is about to be in full swing in terms of before we'll be in conference play. It's fun. And then before you know it, we'll be talking baseball with Hobbs. So
Can't wait for that as well.
So, anything else before we get out of here?
I guess one quick thing I want to visit is it's very nice to see on social media how a bunch of Kentucky fans are taking back their criticism of Cal. So I've seen a lot of you don't realize how good you had it till it's gone. I've seen a lot of those comments. I think, what was it, the 35-point loss on a neutral court to Gonzaga Friday? I think that's kind of made a lot of Kentucky fans kind of doubt their coaching decision. So obviously, hey, whatever. I'm more than happy, but it's also kind of enjoyable to see the regret on that side, just because I don't know. I'm not a huge Kentucky fan. I kind of like seeing them upset. So hey, I'll be petty.
Yeah, I mean that is fun. I mean, to see them get beat 94-59 is pretty insane, and the amount of people tagging
Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio,
specifically his video thanking Tyson for helping get Cal to
I actually retweeted that a couple days ago. So I kind of saw that. I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely entertaining for sure. I mean, obviously, hey, we're an Arkansas show, but I don't know how you go out and spend the supposed $22 million and you have a bunch of 6 men on your team. You don't have anyone that can really take it off the dribble. So I'm not complaining how they built their team, because I think they might struggle a lot more than people think come conference time. So I'm pretty happy with it right now. But yeah, that's my little tidbit at the end.
Yeah, they get a game against North Carolina Central, but then they have back-to-back games against number 22 Indiana and number 23 St. John's.
Okay, then.
So keep an eye out there.
Might be enjoyable to watch that. I'll make sure I get some popcorn for it.
Some nice hate watching there.
For sure.
Not hate watching, but
I don't know. I don't really want to give them the viewership. So I'm like, do I just track it on the app? Probably so.
There you go. Don't contribute to the ratings, but just
for sure. So,
but well, before we get out of here, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go ahead that like and subscribe button. That way you don't miss any time that we go live. And we'll be back here on Thursday per usual. We're going to wrap up here. Everybody have a great rest of your Sunday evening. We're going to wrap up from Zane and myself. We're going to get out of here, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.
No.